beings hate making decisions.
You gotta take care of yourself.
If you're gonna be successful, if you're gonna become a better man,
start small, think big.
There are times when you just think, fuck it, I just want to quit. Got to learn to do the exact opposite.
Starting today.
Thank you and good night. This has been Take Traction. You're welcome.
All right, let's do it then.
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Take Traction Show. We are here with a bit of a different episode today, a bit of a special one, because we've decided to have a little bit of a change in direction as to what we're doing with the podcast. And basically, we've been. First of all, what am I saying? How you doing, Christian?
Hey, Charlie. Straight to the point. Well, it's our first time, so it's a bit weird for both of us, I guess, at least for me.
Well, our first time, I need to explain what. It's our first time being on video whilst doing these recordings. Well, not being on video. Christian and I are always on video and we can always see each other. However, this is the first time that we're actually recording our video. And so if you are listening to this right now, then do be aware that you can head over to our YouTube channel. And I'm not exactly sure what the link is going to be. It's going to be YouTube/Take Traction or something like that, but I'll put it in the show notes. And likewise, you can head over to the website and you can find the podcast at taketraction.com/podcast. And you'll find all of the episodes there. But if you can find this one there, I'll put the link in the show notes as well. You'll be able to find the video recording of this podcast. So, basically, what changes have we got coming up, or what are we doing at the moment? It's kind of frustrating because we just recently made some changes with the podcast a few weeks ago. We decided to go from having this more... We were kind of doing like 1 hour long podcast episodes, I suppose, beforehand, just on one particular topic. And then we also started our Oppie News podcast where we were going through kind of the week's news and giving our opinion on it, obviously e-commerce news and digital marketing and things like that. And we enjoyed doing that so much that we thought that we would bring everything together and unite the podcast and develop even more segments, ultimately creating kind of a big mega podcast that was going to be 2 hours long each time. And the reason for wanting to do that was, number one, because we enjoyed doing different segments and having some kind of variety. But number two, because we wanted to make something really different and unique and have something that was, longer form content and just a little bit more kind of stand out from the crowd, I suppose. And that went really well. We really enjoyed it. But ultimately, the biggest problem with that has been that it takes a lot of time. This podcast is
editing the podcast, posting,
writing an
article. All that stuff takes a lot of time.
I mean, this podcast. When we're doing when we've been doing the 2 hour one recently, it takes probably about 2 hours to prepare the podcast beforehand, because we're preparing game shows, we're preparing the Oppie News, we're writing down notes on the feature segment. So it's at least a couple of hours to prepare each podcast. And then we usually spend about 3 hours recording the podcast, even though it's only 2 hours of actual content, just because of preparation and setup and stuff like that. And then it usually takes me about 3 hours to edit the podcast afterwards, because of course we've got to edit all the soundtracks, got to write out the show notes, got to make the featured image for the blog post on the website and all those kinds of things. So ultimately, you're looking at about an 8 hour production period every single week just for one podcast. And here's the thing, right? We have a lot of different projects going on at the moment. We're working on so many different things, and the podcast is really, really important to us. And by no means do we want to stop doing the podcast. But ultimately, we have to consider the fact that it's not a source of revenue for us. And so when there are other important things going on that are potentially going to have a lot of growth, or, we're working on our Amazon business at the moment, and that's got a lot of potential. And so it just makes sense for us to prioritize and be a little bit more sensible. Even though one of our objectives is to grow our podcast and grow the following of the podcast, right now it shouldn't be a top priority for us. So
indeed, so many times people get out of focus and they lose grip on any aspects of the business just because they don't focus. And I think we mentioned this in our previous podcasts, but I think it's really important, and we both agreed we got to spend more time and be more focused on whatever is working at the moment.
Exactly, yeah. Taking the bull by the horns and really, really buckling down on those things that are important to us right now. And of course, if we're spending 8 hours per week on creating this podcast, then that leaves us 4 days really. And 4 days when you're running we got 3 or 4 different projects going on at the moment. It's really not a lot of time, especially considering that we work with quite a few clients as well. So they often have a lot of unexpected requests for us, that end up popping up throughout the week. So ultimately, we've made the decision to have a little bit of a pivot and move towards more of a short form podcast format. And again, the reason for that is, we want to get it nice and concise and short so that we can record these episodes fairly quickly, have a very streamlined editing process. Someday, I suppose, in the near future, we'll look to outsource a lot of the editing, the post-production work as well. But for the moment, that is something that I'm taking care of. So we want to get it as streamlined as possible, get these episodes down to roughly, I suppose, around 20 minutes each, with no concern if they go over that and if they reach, 45 minutes or something. If we've got an in-depth topic like, was it last week that we did the Amazon PPC stuff, Christian?
No, the week before.
Was it really already?
Yeah.
Jeez. Oh yeah, I was really sick last week. Yeah, so the week before last, when we did this really in-depth analysis of how to set up your Amazon PPC campaigns for a product launch or whatever. That was a topic that required quite a lot of discussion. So that one, if we were doing this new format, that would have easily taken 45 minutes to an hour anyway. And so if that happens, we're not going to stop that. But what we're not going to do is try and make the podcast longer just for the sake of making it longer. So where possible, we're going to keep it nice and short and to the point. But in addition to that, we're also going through a new medium now, which is the medium of video. So yeah, tune in on YouTube. Head over to our YouTube account and please subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. You can find the link right below in the show notes. Please come and join us. Subscribe. Doesn't mean you have to watch every one of them. It just helps us reach you with our new podcasts and videos. And hopefully every now and then you'll see something on your feed, on your homepage, on YouTube pop up that is a topic that interests you. And you can tune in and hopefully join in the conversation as well. That's really something we want to add to this. We've been discussing this for a few weeks now. We really want to push the conversation a little bit further and get people... or I say further, push it, get it started at all. Get people joining in conversation, giving us feedback, but more importantly, telling us about their problems, telling us about what things you are facing, on a daily basis. You, the listener, what are you dealing with? Christian and I
we're learning from everyone.
Yeah.
That's how we learn. That's how people learn. Eventually.
Exactly. We are constantly working in e-commerce on a daily basis, and we have a lot of problems that we come up against. And so we tend to talk about those problems with the assumption that other people may have come across those problems, but we don't really know what you're facing. So share it with us. Head over to the Facebook page. Again, I'll leave that in the show notes. It's facebook.com/take traction. I'll tell you what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do this right now because I've been talking about this for weeks and I'm not getting around to it. I'm going to set up a Facebook group, right? Because I want it to be more... Facebook page is a place where it's kind of our homepage. It's where we can publish things and you can comment on them. However, a Facebook group is more of a conversational place. You create the content. The group members create the content. So I'm going to go and set that up today, and I'm going to leave the link in the show notes as well. So come and join in there and just say hi. Really, ultimately, I want the Facebook group to be a really small, tight-knit place where we don't have thousands of people. I want to have 300, 500 people at most, all adding a lot of value. You know, if you're looking for a Facebook group where you can just go and steal a bunch of value, then please don't come and join. We want people who can come and give as much as they can take. So come, say hi. It's going to be brand new at the moment, so there's not going to be people in there. But please come and join. Hopefully, it'll be the beginning of something great, and we'll all be able to start helping each other out. You know, and kind of create a little tightly knit support group, which I think would be really cool.
That's the ultimate goal.
So that's been the big change, really. Anything else we need to add on the podcast, Christian?
I guess not. I guess that covers everything.
I think that's it for the moment.
Yeah.
So what else? So I wanted to kind of segue from that into a little bit of just to have a little bit of a productive conversation with regards to e-commerce and marketing today, and just have a quick discussion on changing your mind. You know, and the importance of being able to change your mind and make pivots, right?
Which we've been doing for so long, and at some point, I guess you feel guilty because you see a lot of people that just go for it and stick to the line, but we're not that people, I guess, and a lot of people aren't.
True, yeah. I think it's a really important thing to realize. First of all, I want to highlight something. There is a very fine line between being restless and not ever seeing anything through, not ever giving something a chance to succeed, and being clever and pivoting. Right, when it's important
there's
to
a
do
difference,
so.
a big difference, yeah.
And I know that I walk on that fine line, right? I know that I'm not perfect with that, and that I do have a very low attention span, and so it's very easy for me to lose interest in something and end up thinking that it's an important pivot that I need to make, when really it's just me getting bored of something, and I should have stuck with it for longer.
Yesterday, I realized you and I are both the same way in that aspect. As we kept discussing it, I said, all right, I'm having the same problem. And I thought, I got to fix it, but it's not necessarily a problem.
It's not a problem, but what's important is to manage it and utilize it. What you will have often heard, I suppose, if you are used to kind of the whole 9-to-5 world, right? If your family and friends live in the 9-to-5 world, they all work in, they've all got 9-to-5 jobs, then the done thing, or the thing that you're kind of trained to do when that is your lifestyle, is to stick with something. And I'm not talking about for 6 months or something. I'm talking about for 30 years of your life, right? It's about choosing a career and sticking with it and working your way up. What are you supposed to do with a job? You're supposed to go in at the bottom and work your way up, get that promotion, and slowly you work your way to the top of the company. What do you do with property? You buy a house and you work your way up the property ladder, and you do that over years and years and years. And so I think most people who are listening to this podcast anyway, if you're listening to this, you're probably not so much like that anyway. And that's the very reason that you're listening to this, because you've got that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. You want change, you want to do things, you want to be creative. And I think that kind of nature causes you to be someone that has to change their mind a lot and be on their feet and think quickly and make quick pivots. And
react at some point, because all these pivots are based on different things that happen at some point. So you got to pivot or you die. It's survival instinct. I guess.
And so on the one hand, I would say you got to be very careful to make sure that I think you need to assess yourself really when it comes time to make a change. You need to know. You need to assess yourself and say, look, am I being, is this my monkey brain here deciding to make a change because I'm bored of doing something? Or is this a wise decision? Is this a decision that's going to help me be more efficient or reach my goals quicker, or take the company in a better direction, or whatever it may be? You really have to make sure I think it's important to train yourself to to go through that process in your head of self-assessing, auto-assessing when those decision-making moments come along. With that said, I think it's incredibly important to be able to change your mind quickly in the world of marketing and in business.
In a changing world.
You have to adapt very, very quickly to things. Number one, on the one side, we're living in a world that is constantly changing, and especially in marketing, right? I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with, not so much recently, but at least 5 years ago, or maybe a little bit more, people who had taken degrees, people who had gone to university to study digital marketing, right? And they've got fucking degrees in SEO and shit like that. The problem is,
you can get a degree in SEO?
Well, you can get a degree in digital marketing and you can have studied SEO. Yeah, I think my friend had a diploma in SEO or something like that. Yeah.
Shit, never heard of it. It's my first time. Right.
So it's kind of crazy because, we laugh at it, but there are people out there who genuinely think that you can teach this stuff and that it will last, your knowledge will last more than a year. It doesn't. It doesn't. You have to. The world of digital marketing, this is why I think I enjoy it so much. The world of digital marketing is such a rapidly evolving and changing one that it makes you have to be on top of your game all the time. There are constantly new channels. Every existing channel is constantly developing and improving.
Adding new modules, even a marketing automation tool adds new modules every now and then. Probably 3 or 4 each year, or they improve the platform. So you've got to stay up to date.
Big time. And this, 1 year ago, or when Instagram ads first came out, I remember testing them very quickly and not getting any results with Instagram ads. I was getting results, but it was very, very expensive. And so, part of the way I did my marketing was by not using Instagram as an advertising platform. I've since gone back and tested that fairly recently, and I've been seeing amazing results on Instagram, much, much better than on Facebook. I've just lost lights here.
So it seems.
Much, much better than on Facebook. So, I've had to change my mind there. I've had to change the way I do things and the way I think in order to get better results. And having that flexibility and not getting set in your ways is really what's going to allow you to beat the crowd at the end of the day. I remember the first time.
Oh, go on.
Sorry, I could keep talking for days.
No, it was a story about me 10 years ago starting in SEO.
Tell us.
Oh man, everything was crazy easy. It was so simple to start a business. And rank it on Google. It was crazy. You just had to do some automated posting. Post your website on directories. Add an anchor keyword. That was it. Post it everywhere on the internet where you could. There was no rule that said, directories are shit, or spamming with block comments is shit. No, everything worked. So I'm looking, and you said that you need to pivot, and I did. 4 years ago, I had to pivot because everything I knew and learned in the last 7 years changed and went to shit. Everything I owned, everything I've learned, everything was not working anymore. So I had to pivot. I realized, what am I doing with my life? I'm only skilled in SEO. What is this? This is not something that a well-established marketer is.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's when I started learning AdWords. That's when I started interacting with other people. That's when I started learning marketing automation, inbound marketing, all that beautiful stuff that got us here.
There you go. And I should highlight that Christian is one of the kind of these affiliate marketing babies who has built affiliate websites and done very well off of them in the past, but got very badly hit with the Google algorithm updates. a few years back.
I cried my ass off.
Adaptation was incredibly important for Christian. And I think adaptation is incredibly important for everyone. It's kind of an adapt or die case, right? And if you aren't willing to adapt, if you aren't willing to make changes, if you aren't willing to try new things, if you aren't willing to assess what you're currently doing and look for ways to optimize, even if that means getting rid of something or stopping something that you've already invested a lot into, if you don't have the habit of making that assessment, then ultimately the competition is going to beat you, or ultimately you're going to beat yourself down. In our case with the podcast, we were going to just run ourselves out of energy and out of time, and right now, we've got to earn money, we've got a lot of investment that we need to make at the moment into our Amazon business, and so what's important to us is our other things, and so and notice that it's not a case necessarily for us of chucking the podcast out the window, but rather adapting and improving it and making it adapt to us as well, I suppose. But there are times when it may be something you've just got to completely get rid of. I can't tell you how many companies I've set up and had to make the horrible decision after 7 months, 10 months, 12 months of investing my hard-earned money, my time, literally non-stop, having worked on something for nearly a year, and had to close the whole thing down just because of the realization of certain problems that weren't going to allow me to take it any further.
That's a killer, is that when you realize there's nothing else you can do, that's a real killer. And but you say that, and I've done the exact same thing several times, and people kept asking me, how can you get rid of a company that you put so much time into? And I said, I count my wounded and just move on to the next one.
True. Yeah.
And I think it has to be that simple.
I think that's a very good example of when you have to assess that fine line of giving up too soon on something as well, right? On giving up just because you're bored or whatever it may be. I can't tell you the number of times it would have been so easy. We don't make money from this podcast at the moment. Perhaps we will in the future, but we don't right now. And I can't tell you the number of times it would have been so much easier to just say, look, let's just get rid of this fucking podcast. Let's just stop this thing. We're making money doing X, Y, and Z. Let's go and just focus on those things, make a shitload of money, and go and live in the Bahamas somewhere. It would be so easy to do that. So you have to keep yourself in check there. You have to make sure that you're walking that fine line, that you're not dipping your toe on the other side of it too much. Keep yourself in check. Don't give up on things that just need a bit of persistence. Bear in mind that things do take their time. It takes time to be successful, for something to grow, for something to break even. If it's a new business, it may take 3 years. My grandpa always used to say this to me, that it takes 3 years to build a successful company, or to get a company to profitability. I think that's changed a lot in recent years because of the digital age. But I still think it's very true that it takes 3 years to reach stability in a company where you can really have reliable income with a good infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. So bear in mind that things take their time. Stick with things, be persistent, but be prepared to adapt, be prepared to change and pivot to improve performance, improve efficiency, and ultimately improve your lifestyle and your happiness, because that's what's most important, I suppose.
Indeed. And whenever you start a business, don't expect to make money in the first year or so. Just
That's
don't.
Another good point.
It's easier to get over these simple feelings that there's nothing more you can do. When you expect too much from a business, but when you don't expect much in the next year since you started, then things are easier.
Oh, 100%.
You're more motivated. So, indeed.
So, I think that about wraps it up. Anything else you want to add to that, Christian?
That's it.
Cool, as always. So, if you are listening or watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. If you are listening in one of your podcast apps, whether it be the iTunes podcast app, or the Apple podcast app, or whether it be Overcast or Stitcher or whatever, you know which one you use, please leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. It'd really help. If you're on YouTube, then leave a little comment in the video below. This has been the first of our video podcasts. So thank you for tuning in. As always, I've been Charlie Center.
I've been Christian Ober.